moments in history that force a nation to look into a mirror and ask the difficult question, what are we becoming? The assassination of Charlie Kirk and the assassination attempts against Donald Trump are not simply isolated acts of violence. They are warning signs, signals that something deeper is happening within the culture and the political environment and the psychological atmosphere of modern society. These events have shocked millions of Americans because they shattered an assumption many people still held that political violence on the scale was something that happened elsewhere in other countries or in history books. Yet today, we are confronted with this reality that political hatred, fear, and ideological extremism can evolve into something far more dangerous. When someone attempts to assassinate a public figure, whether the person is a president, an activist, or a political commentator, the act itself is rarely spontaneous. It often emerges from a complex mixture of personal grievances, ideological obsessions, social isolation, radicalization, and psychological instability. The individual who commits such an act may convince themselves that they are acting heroically, that they are correcting an injustice, saving a nation, or striking against an enemy they have come to view as less than human. This process of dehumanization is one of the most dangerous forces in any society because once a person no longer sees their target as a fellow human being, almost anything becomes justifiable in their own minds. The frightening reality is that political violence rarely begins with violence itself. It begins with the gradual erosion of trust, empathy, and the ability to disagree without hatred. When political opponents are constantly portrayed as existential threats, enemies of civilization, or monsters beyond redemption, some individuals, particularly those already struggling with anger or alienation or mental instability, may begin to believe that violence is not only acceptable but necessary. History repeatedly has demonstrated to us that societies become vulnerable when the political competition transforms into political warfare. The individuals who carry out these attacks, they often share certain characteristics through their no single profile. They may feel powerless in their own lives, a significance through a dramatic act. They may become consumed by online communities that reinforce their grievances and amplify their anger. They may spend months or years constructing a worldview in which violence appears to be the only remaining solution. And in many cases, they are not acting as masterminds of ideology, but as individuals who have lost the ability to separate political fantasy from reality. The desire for notoriety and revenge, ideological victory, or personal meaning can merge into a dangerous and often deadly combination. What makes the current moment particularly concerning is the environment in which we live. Never before in human history have people had access to such an enormous volume of information. Outrage, conspiracy theories, political rhetoric, and algorithmically amplified anger. The social media platforms reward the emotional extremes, and political media ecosystems often profit from fear and outrage. Every controversy becomes existential, and every disagreement becomes apocalyptic, and every opponent becomes an enemy. In such an environment, vulnerable individuals can become trapped in echo chambers that reinforce their darkest impulses. Yet, while it is tempting to search for a single cause or a single group to blame, doing so risks repeating the very cycle that created the problem in the first place. Political violence is not defeated through more hatred and more demonization, or more fear for that matter. It is defeated by understanding the conditions that allow the extremism to flourish and addressing them before tragedy actually occurs. So, what can be done about it? Well, first, there must be a renewed commitment to political discourse that recognizes opponents as human beings rather than existential enemies. Second, security protocols surrounding public figures and political events must continue to evolve to address the modern threats. Third, society must take seriously the growing impact of social isolation, online radicalization, and mental health crises. And finally, political leaders, media organizations, and citizens alike must recognize the immense responsibility that comes with shaping the public's narratives. The assassination of Charlie Kirk and the attempts on Donald Trump remind us that democracy is not merely a system of government, it is a culture of restraint, disagreement, and mutual recognition. When those foundations begin to erode, violence fills a vacuum, and the challenge facing America is not simply preventing the next attack, it is rebuilding the conditions that make such attacks less likely to occur in the first place. Because ultimately, the question is not whether one political side wins or loses. The real question is whether the society can preserve its humanity while navigating its deepest disagreements. And the answer to that question will determine far more than the outcome of an election. It will determine the future character of the nation itself. I want to thank you for tuning in to the Unfiltered Political Lens podcast. I want to thank you for tuning in today, and we'll see you in the next one. And as always, peace.